Hi,
we're back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so some technical difficulties with audio. We're here today to talk about chatbots. Chatbots are a hot topic at the moment, and I guess it's safe to say there's various different thoughts, various different opinions, on chatbots, and we're here today to talk about those. So this session will be, I guess, us having a bit of a conversation about chatbots, and then at the end we'll take some questions and we'll answer questions that you may have. So should we kick it off with, I guess, a conversation on
what is a chatbot?
Yeah, what a chatbot is.
Yeah. Am I starting that way?
Start, yeah.
So when we talk about chatbots, we try and think about them as more like a digital assistant than a chatbot. I think some people are a bit turned off by the phrase chatbot, and they think it's kind of like, well, my customer's going to be speaking to a robot. I don't really feel comfortable with that. I don't feel like there's going to be enough control for me in doing that. But I think, what I want to do is try and demystify that a little bit and say, well, you're building a chatbot, so you've got control of what those conversations are going to be. But actually, what a chatbot or what a digital assistant does is put customers in touch with the information that you've already got available on your website in a way that maybe they're not currently able to do through the tools that you've got on there at the moment. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's interesting because chatbots have been here for far longer than people think. One of my earliest, I guess, interactions with the chatbot was probably through Ryanair. It was either Ryanair or EasyJet, and they had a sort of ask. I can't remember. It might have been Ask Jenny, and I think it was Ask Jenny, and Jenny was effectively a series of questions that are regularly asked, and I'd click on, can I take an item of luggage onto the flight with me, and it would return a static answer, and it was very, very clear that was a bit of a flow chart and a process that you go down a certain route and you have a certain outcome. I think what you're saying now is that chatbots are a lot more intelligent and a lot more conversational now.
Well, yeah, I suppose they can be made more intelligent because the tools that are available to build chatbots are a lot more advanced than they were back when you were talking to Jenny.
Yeah, definitely. And in regards to, I guess I've mentioned a chatbot that I have interacted with. There's a few more I'll talk about. But have you got any recent experience with chatbots?
Well, as an agency, we've developed our own chatbot, haven't we, on our own website, which I think is probably a good one to kind of talk about.
Yeah.
We've also seen some in the sector, in the housing sector. Obviously, I've done a lot of work in the housing sector, and I've seen some okay examples of chatbots being put out there. But I think there's no one that's really, truly sort of in that sector, at least, harnessing like the real power of a chatbot and what it can really do, integrating with the housing management system and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I guess I see, if we look outside of the sector, outside of Prodo as well, and if we look at the different types of chatbots that are available, I've seen chatbots that are there to facilitate questions, such as an FAQ page on a website could be replaced by a chatbot. Some of the ones a contact page, for example. Some of the ones I guess I've played around with recently, just before Christmas, ASOS. I got a notification through the app telling me that they had a Christmas gift finder. Mm-hmm. I knew it was because of the space I work in. I knew it was a chatbot, so I wanted to go through that process. I was looking for a present for my wife. I went through a really conversational sort of flow with them. I was asking me what sort of things she's into. Would she be seen on a beach or baking a cake? Would she rather go to Mauritius or France? And it was asking me some sort of lifestyle questions, a lot of emojis, very casual.
On brand, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, very on brand. And ultimately, what it kicked back to me was products that I could purchase that fitted that demographic.
As a tool to enable sales, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. So whilst
and you ended up buying stuff off that list.
I don't think I did, but probably.
What was that one we talked about? Habito. Do you remember when we first started talking about chatbots a while ago? And Habito was the example that we used, and even since then, it's changed quite a lot. But that's effectively an online mortgage broker. So you could start by literally talking to a chatbot and end with a mortgage, and you've not spoken to an actual person.
Yeah, I think that's one of my favourite examples. I think what's interesting, you said at the beginning there, is that chatbot has evolved over time. Yeah. And I think what's important to note is that a chatbot, just like any other digital asset, but a chatbot specifically, it shouldn't stay still. It shouldn't be something you roll out on day one and hope for the best. It should be something where you're analysing the data that comes through. You're analysing the conversation. You might find out that 70% of your users are going down a particular flow. Well, why can't they find that information on the website?
Well, 70% of the users are asking a question that you don't have an answer to at the moment.
Yeah,
so there's gaps. And the same way that you do with your website, where you look at analytics and you look at what people's search terms are on your website, and you'll then identify areas of improvement. It's the same with the chatbot.
Yeah, absolutely.
The same like scripts as well. So if someone has a call center script, they will look at that over time. They'll be looking at what people are asking, what are the frequently asked questions,
and what can we build into that script to make it easier.
Is it service-based? Is it sales-based?
Yeah.
It can take so many different facets.
Yeah. So I think that people think that a chatbot is something that is going to be imposed upon them, that they have no control over.
Absolutely.
But that is almost the opposite of what a chatbot is. It's something that you take if you want, and that you completely control.
Completely. One of the big features of a good chatbot is the ability to hand off to real people at a certain time.
Yeah.
And I think, a chatbot is what you make it. A chatbot can be something that can replace people, but it doesn't have to be. And a chatbot can be something that actually qualifies conversation prior to putting that through to a real representative. It can be something that ensures that enough data is being collected to be put into the right department before a person is involved. And I think it's important at this point to talk about the fact that a chatbot isn't necessarily there to be a robot that replaces people and your business runs off 2 staff. A chatbot can complement your existing team.
It augments that team. It becomes a member of that contact center team if you've got a contact center. But it's also about that 80-20 rule, isn't it? That 80% of the conversations that might be currently happening through a live chat interface could be serviced by a chatbot, because it's the same answer every single time. What's the point in getting people to waste their time at the other end of that experience in answering those questions again and again, when you could let a bot do that? The 20% of the time it might be too complicated for a bot to work with, so they can seamlessly hand off to a real person, and they can maybe even spend more time speaking to that person.
And I think as well, something to mention is that a chatbot exists where you want it to exist. And by that I mean that we now have implementations of chatbots that are working on email, SMS, Facebook Messenger, on website, Slack, through various internal messaging tools. A chatbot isn't this wonderful creation that exists somewhere and nobody ever visits it. It can sit as a widget in the bottom right-hand corner of your website, just like live chat. It can sit on SMS so that people can, ask questions.
There's banking chatbots. There's that one that is run entirely through Facebook Messenger, I think, where Plum, where you actually make savings into your bank account by just doing a message on Facebook Messenger saying save 20 quid or tell me what my current balance is.
That's quite interesting. So we've got a question from Emily at Nightstone, who said, how helpful and responsive can a chatbot really be compared to a human?
Good question.
So a chatbot, let's use the example of Plum or Habito. I'm going to go through Plum. So Plum is a chatbot. Now it's a chatbot that is... it's more than a chatbot. It's a chatbot with integration. And by that, I mean they've taken advantage of the open banking protocol that's recently been sort of created that allows Plum to interact with your bank accounts. And if you go on Facebook now, go onto the Plum Facebook page and sign up, it will connect to your bank account. You approve it and so on. And it analyzes your spending habits every single day. And it looks at the typical transactions you make on a day-to-day basis, an hour-to-hour basis, and it sort of evaluates what are you likely to spend for the rest of the month based on all of your financial history in your bank account, and takes micro sums of money off you on a daily or weekly basis. So on day 1, it might take 28 pence. On day 2, it might take £3. On day 4, it might take nothing. Day 5, it might take 6p. I ran Plum for 3 months and saved just shy of about £1,000 without actually realizing I'd done it. And it was at a time when I was getting married last year. It was a time when I didn't think I wanted to save £1,000. I didn't think it was...
You could.
Yeah, I was in the middle of getting married. It was an expensive affair. So yeah, I would say that in that situation, it was more useful than a person. But to bring it back into, I guess, real terms and not really cool banking integrations and so on, I would say that it's in the implementation, isn't it?
I would say it's not about replacing people or being more useful than people. It's about, just giving people access to information in a different way. How useful is the information on your website compared to talking to a person? It's about making that information more accessible to a wider audience through different channels.
And what I would say in the example of Emma is that at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, you don't have helpful people available. But a chatbot is available to be helpful at 3 o'clock on a Sunday or at 2 o'clock on a Saturday and so on.
And when that chatbot, as we've said before, can't answer a query, well, we can hand off to somebody who's useful. Maybe not 3 o'clock in the morning, but you could then schedule a call with a member of the contact team, or schedule that live chat to continue off from where it is when they come in at 9 o'clock the next morning.
That actually links in really well to Neil's question from My Home Move about how can it integrate an agent chat with a chatbot.
Okay, so there are various platforms out there that are used to create chatbots, and one we use is a very intelligent platform that obviously allows for API integration and webhook pushing and pulling and so on. But ultimately, these tools have features in that are live chat, that are person-to-person live chat, but you choose whereabouts in that process you hand off to that representative. So if we use an example where somebody might be reporting a repair and they want to say they have an issue inside their home, now we need to diagnose which room, then we need to diagnose which item in the room. The second that becomes, I can smell gas from my boiler, we can hand that over to a person immediately with an escalated priority.
Or show them a button to immediately dial an emergency phone number.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which might be better than hand them off to a person. But I know what you're saying. Like, if it gets to a point where we haven't programmed in that logic into a chatbot, then we set an option from there. Well, if it gets to this point, it goes straight over to a person who's sat there waiting, like your people are already waiting on the end of live chat.
Yeah, definitely.
And from the point of view of the customer, it's not like it's changing. You move into a different window or you're going somewhere else. It's all in the same stream of conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
Fantastic. Question from Continuum Attractions is that Jennifer's saying her senior team are scared of chatbots and they think it will mean off-brand communication and the loss of a human element. In terms of customer experience, are they right to worry?
No. Because the thing is, like we've been saying, it's not a chatbot that we're going to pick off a shelf and say, there you go. It's right. What is the way that your brand needs to communicate with customers? What are the messages that we want to give to them? What are the questions that we want to answer? And we put that into a chatbot or a digital assistant, interface for them. So it's inherently on brand, if not more on brand than a customer, because it's programmed.
There's no room for error. I guess what I would say to echo that is that there are different opinions of chatbots, and there are chatbots out there that use IBM Watson and so on, that effectively are able to judge sentiment. They're able to assess how annoyed an individual is. They're able to understand if it's a positive or negative answer that's given by the end user, and as a result choose an outcome. That type of chatbot, whilst it is slightly more unpredictable due to the fact it's not a defined flow of what's coming next, it uses highly intelligent software to decide. The type of chatbot that we're seeing adopted most at the moment are effectively flowcharts that ultimately are very, very conversational. So if a user goes down a certain path, this is the answer. There's no guesswork.
So I suppose like two, examples would be like a contact page where it's like, I'm trying to do this. Where do I get that information? It might be call this number, or it might be go to this page, or it might be log into our customer account area. And in the housing space, a good one is repairs, because we know what the repair paths are. And like you were saying before, we need to ask whether it's inside or outside. If it's inside, what room it's in. There's a defined pathway that we can take users down with that. So like you say, it's like a flow chart.
Yeah.
Rob's also mentioned here about you can actually build your brand's voice into the narrative of a chatbot.
Yeah,
so it doesn't have to be off-brand. It can live within your tone of voice.
Well, there's an interesting point in there as well in that earlier question about senior executives feeling like scared of chatbots, and how do we get those people to actually see the benefit in a chatbot? How do we get their buy-in? That's an interesting challenge for people working in marketing teams as well, I think.
What I would say is that I believe that earlier on in my career, 10 years ago, I did operate live chat as part of my role in a business elsewhere. And we would do an email marketing campaign and we would have 60, 70, 80 people to deal with at any one time on live chat. The reality is, if you cut through the rubbish, 5 of them are sales, 55 of them aren't. Now, what I would say that by utilizing a chatbot to qualify in or out, you effectively remove the fluff, and what you're left with is real people speaking to real opportunities.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then we've got a question from Carl saying, does a chatbot require a resource to maintain and monitor performance?
Yeah, it does. But we're here as an agency that can
do that,
provide that resource. It's a service we're offering at the moment where actually we are reporting on a monthly and quarterly basis as to the interaction people are having. We've got a very good reporting suite that sort of sits behind our chatbot products, and we are there to create the sort of create the roadmap for the future of that chatbot based on that data.
Yeah, fantastic. Anil is asking, are we actually providing generic chatbots for registered housing providers now?
So what you mean? So are we building chatbots for housing associations at the moment? Yeah, of course we are.
Yeah, and a range of organisations.
Yeah, it's not just housing, and I think a lot of the time, when we talk about the web development services and the technologies that we're developing, a lot of the time the innovation comes from outside the housing sector, and then we can bring it into housing. So some of the really exciting stuff that we're doing outside of housing, but increasingly we're seeing housing want to book the trend that they're a little bit kind of behind the curve and start developing things like chatbots. So we're talking to organisations in the sector about these kind of concierge kind of digital assistants that replace their kind of contact pages, but also more proactive chatbots that will replace things like a My Account area by proactively communicating with customers, allowing customers to make payments, report repairs that interacts with their housing management system, CRM. So it's really exciting.
We've recently started building one for another long-standing client of ours in the leisure and tourism space, where ultimately this chatbot is there to enhance the experience of people that are at their attraction throughout their sort of journey. So they arrive at the location, they take their phone out, they use the Facebook Messenger application to scan a unique QR code, and they're guided around that attraction by a virtual tour guide. And we have the ability moving forward to integrate into a beacon system which can detect where they are in that location, how close they are to attraction A, attraction B, and ultimately try and increase the experience of people whilst at that visitor attraction.
It's pretty amazing, that is.
Yeah. And Danny Williams has asked, what about people with site issues using chatbots?
Yeah. So the beauty of a chatbot is that we as an agency have full control over the styling, over if we look at technical terms, over the CSS, over the JavaScript, over everything to do with the look and feel of that chatbot. We want to make sure that a chatbot is built to the correct accessibility standards, and we have style sheets that will manage that.
And we do it on websites all the time anyway, and the chatbot is going to be an extension to that website or something that is embedded in that website. So we treat it in the same way that we would treat any other website page.
And there's also technology such as VoiceOver on your iPhone or Apple Mac.
Yeah, you got Browser Loud.
And it's built in a way that will allow it to interface with that. I mean, if you also talk about, the omni-channel experience, chatbot built into something like Facebook Messenger, then those apps have their own features that enable it to be more accessible for people with problems with sight.
And interestingly, on that point, if you have an iPhone, for example, I mean, I'm sure on any phone, but I'm a bit of an Apple enthusiast, but as an iPhone user, I have the ability to use the accessibility functions in the settings, and use magnifier, invert colors. I can use the accessibility options pre-built into my phone, my MacBook, my own desktop, and that experience, the settings that I've requested are served to me based on my visual requirements are carried through to the chatbot also.
Yeah. I think translation would be an interesting one as well. I mean, I know we've not really done much work on that. I know with websites we'll use, for example, Google Translate, but what would be really great is a chatbot where someone could start speaking to you in Polish and you could reply in English, but it looks like Polish to them, so that you can still have a conversation regardless of language.
I guess that's almost like the Google earbuds, but
it would work with something like Google Translate, wouldn't it? But I suppose that's something like a next evolution, I think.
Definitely be interesting.
We've got quite a few questions around the topic of frequently asked questions and chat transcripts. What do you guys think around getting these FAQs and putting them into a chatbot?
Effectively, that's what we're talking about doing. I mean, when we talk about making your website content accessible via a conversational interface, I mean, that's effectively what we're doing. We're making those FAQs available through a chatbot.
I think that is probably the quickest and easiest way to roll out a chatbot. If that's something that, every single person here is asking these questions, we should have a chat about this soon and talk about how we can do that for you.
The other thing is with the FAQs question, I mean, on your FAQs page at the moment, you might have a list of FAQs. You've got no way to know if those have answered a customer's question or something else, whereas with a chat, you might not have the answer, but someone's literally typed the question in. So if enough people type that question in, well, you need to answer it, and the next time there'll be something at the end of it. Yeah,
and then you go back into that situation with an agent handoff. So if you do have live chat, maybe 80% of the questions are answered through an FAQ, and the 20% that aren't going to be pushed to a real person.
And you try and make as many of those go into that 80 group.
And going back to something you started speaking about originally, you might have a list of FAQs as long as you're on. You might have a list of FAQs that span pages and pages and pages on your website, and it's quite unsightly, it's difficult to consume, it's content that is lengthy. With a chatbot, you ultimately have the ability to start asking somebody 2 or 3 questions. So, what can I help you with today? And give 3 buttons. So it could be about topic A, B, or C. The user clicks topic A, we give another set of questions, and ultimately we drill them down 3 steps. And we still give the user the ability to see 300, 400, 500 different FAQs, but very, very clearly.
Well, it feels like personal to them as well.
Absolutely.
Edward's asking, what is the process of actually starting a chatbot and creating them?
Well, I suppose the first thing that we'd want to do is understand the kind of chatbot that we're looking to create. So if we're looking to create some sort of concierge kind of contact us chatbot, then we start off by looking at the website content that you've got out there, look at the ways that we can then start connecting up logic into driving people into those different endpoints. There might be some kind of my account area that you've got that you're looking to drive people towards, and we can use a chatbot to facilitate that. So you'd map all of that out into, like you were saying, a sort of like flow chart, kind of logic tree, and then you effectively map that across into the software that we use to build the chatbot and chuck it on the website. But I think the key thing to think about here is it's not just, it's almost like you put it on the website and that's day one, that's when you start. It's when people start interacting with it that you really then start building it out. So I think what we'd want to do is try and really rapidly get something out there, quite quickly, so that we can start harvesting that feedback from customers and build out even more.
The thing I would say to get started is that, you, as Rob mentioned to you, start with a very small piece of consultative work to understand what you're looking to achieve. But the one thing to remember is don't try and make this chatbot do everything. There's no harm with having 5, 6, 7 different chatbots. You might have one for this type of service you offer, one for this type of service, and you can have them so they only actually interact with the user when they're on that page or that section. And the reason I say that is because chatbots are not big, expensive, 50, 60, 70,000 pound things. They're relatively cheap to procure and relatively cheap to actually build. But I think the value they can give far outweigh that.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, fantastic. We're coming on to our final few moments now. And a lot of people are asking around what different platforms can this chatbot actually sit on. So is it agnostic? Can we go onto Facebook, onto the website, and elsewhere?
So with the software we have and the programs we use, it's completely agnostic. So if we start by talking about web and you want this to sit on your website, this can sit on any CMS, whether it's self-built, proprietary, open source, licensed. There's no issue. There's no limit whatsoever. Taking it a step further, we were talking recently about how it can sit on
Facebook Messenger, email, SMS,
WhatsApp, Slack, Skype.
So you could literally start a conversation through a website and then finish it 3 days later if you wanted to through Facebook Messenger.
And I think an interesting point to make there is that one chatbot can service all of your users irrespective of their platform of choice. So it might be that 40% of your users want to use the web, 30% want to use email, 20% SMS. I've probably got over 100% now. But, a whole multiple of different platforms can be used with one chatbot with no extra costs.
Great. And what are your final thoughts on chatbots before we...
Everyone should have one.
My final thought on chatbots is they're not big, scary beasts. Everyone, as I say, has different perceptions of what they are. We can roll out chatbots very, very quickly. And I think one of the most interesting points that's been spoken about today was that Rob said, what we want to do is to get something up day one, get something very sort of minimal up that provides enough for the end user and learn and iterate and iterate and iterate.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.